Get started. We're going to be recording these sessions. You want to review these, we'll get these posted out to the one of our sites, and also you may want to share with other people in your areas. Some of you have been through a presentation by Springboard before.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm looking at my slides.
I wasn't helping you out at all there, Gary, sorry.
So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand, Springboard is the company and Compliance Science is the product
That's
we're going to be using. And so you'll hear those names used back and forth when you see on the schedule it's talking about Compliance Science. This is a product that is integrated with Kayenta's human resource software. And this is a little different than what some of you have experienced in the past with out in your departments. A lot of the stuff that you'll see that can be handled now through Springboard, many of you were probably doing in subsystems in your department. And this is an opportunity to use a great tool to automate and simplify some of the things you're doing and track it better and have better engagement with employees. But I'm not going to explain that. Jason will be taking care of that here in a minute. I'm going to pass it around a sheet here. Has your name on it. If your name's not fine on it, just put it under the, sign your name. Just want you to check off that you're here for every session that you're here. We're tracking participation in all the sessions, and sometimes those, some of these sessions are, depends on the nature of your involvement, go to some of our incentive tracking as well. So pass that around and make sure you check up on that. And so this session this morning goes till noon, and then we break, and some of you will be coming back, some of you may not, as we switch over to looking at the training component. But I'll go ahead and turn it over to Jason and let you give an introduction of your company a little bit and where you're coming from.
Thank you.
And would you like this?
Yeah, that's perfect right there. Can everybody see that? That's good. So Springboard has been around for about 12 years. We started in the utility industry building compliance tools, software compliance tools. And basically we kind of grew and expanded from there. We met Kayenta along the way, and we partnered with them. We started down a path that kind of led us a little bit out of health and safety, and we started moving a little into HR, but that really wasn't where we were experts. So we partnered with an HR expert and let them be the system of record for HR, and we just integrate with Kayenta. We do a lot of work with utilities because they tend to be high risk, high regulatory and legislative requirements, and that fits our product very well. I've been with Springboard about 5 years, and my background is software development, and I'm responsible for the delivery of the product and implementation. Okay, let's get started here. Okay, so basically today, well, for the next couple of days, I'm going to do an overview of the system just so everybody kind of gets a feel for what it's all about. Then we'll do a product demonstration that will be safety oriented this morning, and then we're going to do another one a little later on that's going to be more training oriented. Okay. We'll take a look, we'll do a Q&A, and I'd like to keep this pretty casual, so if anybody has a question at any time, just stop me and we can work through anything that you guys need. We'll take a look at how your organization is set up, the current standards that you're working towards. Over the next couple of days, we're going to have a bunch of discovery sessions, which basically, what I'm looking to get out of it is the ability to kind of take what you're doing now, and then we'll be able to present you guys back a discovery document that allows us to take all the things you're collecting, all the standards that you're looking to adhere to, and put a document together to say this is how we get there. Here's some gaps we need to fill, how do we do that, and that kind of stuff, right? So it's basically the beginning of the implementation. Okay, so Compliance Science it's designed to allow you to conform to the laws, regulations, standards, and other requirements that your business needs to. So to do that, there's a bunch of different components that are required. You've got your policies and procedures, certifications and licensing, testing for comprehension, competency, which is, so there's this kind of idea where you read the procedure, you take the test, and then you have a seasoned professional actually observe you doing whatever the task is and say, yes, they're proficient at that. There's also a risk assessment module, which is pretty comprehensive, identifying all your risks, and then rating them, and then basically distributing that information to the people who are going to be doing those activities, so you know what risks you're actually going to be dealing with on the job. The compliance commitments are kind of like lead up to the regulatory stuff. So that's all those shall statements in any regulation that you see. You shall make all your employees aware of your health and safety policy, those types of things. Incident accident reporting, which is big on the safety side. We have a module for reporting, entry, and then obviously collecting statistics, and there's kind of a scorecard that goes with that on a quarterly and monthly basis. Observations, so those are crew visits, so supervisors go out, make sure everybody's wearing their PPE and all that kind of stuff. So that's how you capture that information. There's also safety meetings, which, was it Bud? Is that safety meeting? Yeah. So you can capture all that information electronically in the system, safety meetings. Inspections and audits, that's a fairly new module for us. We've got some of our customers are just doing their sort of warehouse site inspections and things right on an iPad. And just doing it's a big time saver administratively. And capturing all that information right out of there, you can task out any findings. So if there's a finding and it needs to be dealt with, then you can task it out to somebody in the system. And kind of underlying all of this in the system is the tasking system and a notification system that sort of pulls all these together. A lot of the forms you can set action items up in there, and it actually notifies the person that needs to take action. Hey, there was water at the entranceway, it needs to be cleaned up. You can task that out, somebody can get right on that. You can track what's getting done, and then the supervisory approvals. So we'll look at each of these kind of individually here. So basically, for the first four, which were the policies, the certifications, the testing, the competency, that's covered under our document control and training distribution. So there's a full document life cycle in the module. So you create new revisions, you expire old revisions, you can redistribute the material if it's a major revision to the groups. You can set up lists of reviewers on there, so you can go through a review process. So I'm responsible for the document, however, I need 4 other people to okay the content to make sure that it's working. There's also a feedback in there for all the documents. There's comments, which allow you to keep the content up to date. So basically that's, for a procedure, for example, if a new piece of equipment comes along that's not mentioned in there, the guys who are using that procedure can comment back to the owner of the document and say, hey, that's no longer relevant, this document needs to be changed and updated, and it keeps the content current. And through the review process, you would take all those comments and integrate the changes that need to be made. Then the training assignment is basically how to distribute all of the information you have. So we call it document, but it's really a lot more than just documents. The policies and procedures are documents that people will just read and then say, I'm aware of this policy and procedure. But it also covers the online testing, the certificates which you can upload into the system and then access those at any time. So if you're going through an audit process, for example, that's very helpful, where an auditor says, hey, can you prove that that person is certified and they're aware of all the policies and procedures there should be, and you can just download those and show the certificates and sign-offs and sign-in sheets, for example, they can be uploaded as proof of participation. So the training assignments, which are all those things, we set up positions which are essentially groups of training that are then assigned to groups of people. So people doing similar things that need similar documentation training, that's how you can put those together. You can also assign the training to individual users, which really is an exception-based setup. So if there's a special case where a certain person needs, a couple of extra things that not everybody in that position is going to have, that's where you would do that. So the risk assessment, imagine you guys go through a risk assessment process or have gone at some point. Is that true?
Yes.
I think you guys participated in that, yeah?
We used an outside company to come in and help do those.
Mm-hmm. And that's really common, right? Because it's kind of a specialized skill set for doing the risk assessment. And that happens a lot of the time, is that the risk assessments are done by an exterior company. What we can do is you can do it through our system if you have the resources internally, or even if that external expert wants to use our system to record all of the risk assessment information. We can also take their report and we can upload it into the system and populate our risk assessment in here. So basically, within the system, you can identify and rate the risks. And what we have is we have these, we call them risk sessions, and that allows you to pull in sort of the subject matter experts for those activities. And through, they individually will rate each of the activities, how they see the risk occurring. So I don't know if you guys have done this as for risk assessment. I'm not the risk assessment expert. They usually rate it through severity, probability, and frequency. And that ends up being, there's a formula that then gives you a single number for the risk. So for example, these ones here, these are out of 5. So these are pretty high. So severity, should something go wrong, is high for this one. Frequency is, they do it often. Severity, probability of an incident happening is high on this one too. So this is a high rating here, 16. That's why it's in red. But so through this process of these sessions, so it'd be like a group of people like yourselves, or they could even do it on their own time. You don't have to do it all together, which is nice. You're not pulling all the same resources in together. So these get rated. The ratings then get submitted and aggregated. Then you'll have one person who's sort of in control of the risk assessments, who then approves them or says, well, that doesn't quite seem right. Let's revisit this risk, this activity, and see if we need to make any adjustments there. Now, once you've actually identified your activities, your risks, and you've rated them, there's risk mitigating controls that get applied, right? So, the risk of falling from heights, and then the risk mitigator is you're tethered, right? So that's one of the things. And being tethered is related to, there's training, there's policy, and there's a procedure, right? So those mitigating items that we just talked about, MPPE would be one, those can all get associated with the risk, and those controls also get their mitigating rating. So you end up with this scenario where you have, here's our potential risk, right? These are all the things that could go wrong. We apply all of our safety controls, we end up with a residual risk. Depending on how those controls are being adhered to in your organization, you'll end up somewhere in the middle, right? So if everybody's doing all the right things, you're left with a residual risk. If nobody's doing any of those, you're still at your full potential. So you end up with this kind of real risk. And then part of this too is you can just distribute the risk matrix to the people who are doing those activities through the system. So that would be one of the items that they need to review. And the nice thing about that is if you get just a paper version of a risk the risk assessment, it's static, right? So if anything changes over time, this doesn't necessarily reflect that, right? But if it's live in the system, as new activities happen and things getting updated on a regular basis, that will be reflected and everybody will have access to that up-to-date information all the time. So the compliance commitments, so they're related to your legislative regulatory stuff. OSHA standards, 18,001, Z1000, whatever it is, ISO, any of those standards can be loaded into the system. It's very generic that way. So DWQMS is another, I don't know, do you guys adhere to is that the drinking water standard? DWQMS, is that the one you guys? No. So any of those standards for any of your departments can be loaded into the system. And essentially, we relate all of those training items to the legislative shell statements. So, for example, on this particular one, the legislative requirement, work well is a standard in Ontario to measure how well you're adhering to the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And for this particular one, first aid certificates are qualified first aid attendants are posted. And the way that that's done, training certificates for all first attendants posted in designated workplace locations. And there's actually a rating system for this, which is fairly underutilized with most of our customers. But you can have an auditor, if you want, come in and weight how much this particular shell statement should be considered over all the others within the same requirement, within the same, regulation. And this is going to be a rating of the current quality of what you're doing to adhere to that. And this would be where they would expect you to end up being. So there's a sort of a regulatory implementation audit that you can do as you're moving through the system. I can tell you that that's not going to be something you're going to consider doing right off the bat, but it is available when you get there.
You just enter what you have to track, or is there an actual tracking feature to that to say?
Yeah, so once you've reached your quality potential, then these are done. And they're approved. So there's an approval process through the audit. And I think I don't know if I have an auditor set up in the demo we're going to do, but basically for the regulatory ones, whoever's set up to be the regulatory auditor can approve them once they're completed. So once he's satisfied that what you're doing takes care of the shell statement.
So our office is responsible for posting a lot of stuff around the city. How would we use this? Like, one of the problems is if you lose a person who's responsible for that, you have this long list of things you're supposed to have posted and nothing really to track, where it's posted or the fact that it exists that you have to post it. Can you use this to, a new person can come in and say, oh, I see where I'm supposed to have this and track it through this system?
I think probably this is not the place to do that. I think probably the inspection audit module would be better, because you could have, when we go through that demo, we'll try and map what you're saying into that. But basically, for that, you would set up what we call a theme, which is all the things you need, is your checklist, essentially.
Right.
And that would be your postings checklist. And then I think that would be a better way to do that. And then you can distribute that to somebody on a schedule and say, okay, here, these are all the postings. Let's make sure they're all done. I think that would probably be a better solution for what you're talking about. And even here, they don't have to necessarily be related to legislative or standard. It could just be your corporate best practices, right? You may want to track how well you're adhering to your own rules and policies and procedures. The incident reporting module, there's a couple of ways you can do an incident report. There's a very simple one where you basically can just start an incident, just need a description, and if you want to upload any attachments to that. Or there's a full incident reporting form, which obviously this is a little bit of the detail that it goes into, where you start rating its potential for harm, potential damage, frequency of occurrence. You can add in participants to it, and you can do a full incident report. So it's kind of up to you how you want to handle that. Some of our customers have sort of phased in the full entry, so they've got some incident hard reports that they already use, and they just used the simple entry to get those into the system as having an electronic record of those. The good thing about doing the full incident entry is that it all kind of rolls up into a scorecard, right? We had this many near misses, we had this many vehicle accidents below $5,000 this quarter, and then you can actually start measuring those statistics and bringing corrective actions against those.
And this breaks out by areas that we decide departments, so each department has their own way to go in and analyze near misses, accidents. It still flows through for purposes of workers' compensation and OSHA.
Exactly. So all of the forms, so we consider these, so the incident, accident, the safety meetings, the inspections and audits, we consider all those forms. And on all the forms, you have there's a sign-off procedure. It's also all completely departmentalized, so that allows you to do the reporting by department, or you can even do it by the entire organization as well. There's work observations as well. I don't know if I mentioned that, but that's also a form type entry. You can also, we've added a feature, this is sort of a stopgap before we have our incident app, phone app or mobile app. You can submit a incident report or get one started at least by a simple email. So if you're out in the field and you see something happen, all you got is your phone. You can take a picture, you can email that to incidents@provo.com, and that will start off an incident. In the system we set up a default owner for those types of incidents, and then they would start actually filling in the details. But if this is all you got, you can get a picture or you can get some details going, and an incident can start getting investigated right away. You can just kick one off through an email. Planned work observations. So this captures a lot of information about this is supervisors going out in the field, or it's a tailboard, or it's basically taking a look at, are people doing the things they should be doing? Is everything kind of covered? You can determine whether it's, I'm sure you guys have do you guys do a lot of subcontracting? Yeah. So you can do it between contractor and internal, so you can keep the reporting separate, so you know where you're having issues or not. Capture all the hazards and controls, the PPEs and barriers, and then you can do tasking for any findings that you occur. So if there's something immediate that needs to occur, you can take care of that through the system and get it tasked out. You can list all the participants that are, because you mentioned, Gary, at the beginning there that the participation in these sections goes to some of your incentive programs. So this allows you to give these folks who are participating in these work observations, you can get stats on how many they were involved in and what they participated in. So very similar to that. And then there's a sign-off procedure for these as well, and an approval process. The safety meetings, very similar. There's a few different types. I don't know if you guys will use them all. We'll look at them when we go into actually do the demo. This is the inspections. They're pretty simple. It's basically a yes/no type thing. It works well with audits as well. So essentially you set up themes, and these are your themes here of the thing. There's two themes involved in this particular one. There's a fire theme, and then there's a stores theme. And those are basically lists of the checks that you want to include in the inspection or audit. Okay? And then you can have multiple themes per inspection. So whatever sort of fits for this particular inspection, you bring in the proper themes, and it creates these lists. And then you can basically, you go through, hit the OK, you can add some notes. No means that there was a finding, and that then spawns a task for somebody to, so you add in notes, and then it tasks somebody to actually take care of that finding. And the good thing about the tasking is that, obviously, as you're running through this, you're not going to know all of the tasks that need to be done, and you're not going to know all of the people that you need to involve, right? So you can task it to one person who is then responsible to subtask it out, and then they take over getting that done. So that kind of filters down to who ends up actually doing those tasks. There's an approval process on that as well. So once the inspections, the findings are complete, it comes back to the inspector, and he approves whether, yes, the guard was put back on, whatever he found. The other part is contractor compliance. So for your subcontract, so compliance science is built to basically take care of all your internal stuff. Now, it doesn't manage the relationship between you and your contractors. So this stuff that you need from your contractors before they start work, right? So liability insurance is one of those. If they're doing specialized work, do they have the right licenses for the corporation and or employees, depending on what type of thing that is. So we've got another product called contractor compliance that allows you to do exactly that. So this, it's a very simple interface for contractor compliance. We can get a little more into it if you guys want to in the demo. But basically, here's a listing of all your contractors and their corporate and employee compliance based on the requirements that you've set out for them. So what it does is it takes a lot of the administrative burden off of you guys. So I know a lot of the time before a contractor starts working on a new job, you got to chase them for paperwork, you got to chase them for certs for the guys, and that is all taking time and effort on your part. What this does is give them a portal into the system to upload all those requirements. And then all you do is you can audit them as needed, as you see fit. And then before they actually start work, all you need to do is just make sure they're 100% compliant for the particular job or position that they're going to be doing for you. So this is a big saver for administratively for you guys. So on the contractor side, this is what they would see. These are the things that Oakville Hydro has required of Super Sucker Hydro back, and these guys have obviously completed these here. If this item had been audited by Oakville Hydro, this would turn green, that it's certified as good. The gray means that they have not actually audited these particular ones. And then if you click on these, it brings the proof up right away so that you can audit it right on the spot and clear it or decline it as proof. And if you decline it as proof, obviously it just goes back to the contractor as this is still required, it's not quite right. You need to put notes in there and then Is that something you guys, is anybody in here responsible for the contractor management? Go. So is that something that you would be helpful for you?
We can keep it all in one spot.
Yeah, it's really giving a lot of value to a lot of our customers right now. Now what I wanted to do as well, so we're going to have some sessions later that I was hoping, I need to distribute some materials via email. Who here is going to be in the sessions this afternoon to go through the materials that we're going to look at some policies and procedures? Could you guys send me a quick email, just so I have your contact info? And then I'll send you out kind of the worksheets that we're going to be using to collect the materials you're currently distributing. And that kind of stuff.
The meeting invite that you're on has everybody's email with it.
Yeah, I wasn't going to send it to, I was only going to send it to the people who actually were going to be in the sessions this afternoon. Should I just send it to everybody? And then disregard if
They
you don't?
probably all need to respond
Okay.
to their areas.
Okay. Now, do we have multiple people per department here?
In a
Is it
few
just-
cases. In a few cases.
In a few cases? Okay. All right. I just don't want to double up the work for people. So who here is going to be in, so who here is just safety related? That's not going to be in this afternoon? Okay. No? You're going to be in the training this afternoon?
A lot of us are from HR, so we'll be attending
Oh, I see.
as
Okay.
much as possible.
Okay. So the HR piece of this is with Kayenta. Obviously, some of those things I just talked about take quite a bit of work to actually set up all of these positions and getting all this documentation in there and setting up tests and all that kind of stuff, and the distribution. So that's probably one of the largest pieces of implementation that we end up doing, identifying all the people that it needs to go to and that kind of thing. The really nice thing about partnering with Kayenta is that is taken care of when you do your HR implementation. That data comes into our system and basically sets up all the distribution for it. So all we need to do is relate the training to the positions, and that's it. So, and then as people come and go and move positions, that's all automatically updated in our system, so that they're then distributed the new materials that are relevant to their new position. If we want, can we take a quick break right now, and then we'll jump into the demo. Now, is there particular, are there particular things that you guys want to focus more on than others? I think the inspection is going to be big for you.
Accident reporting.
The incident, yeah, incident accident. Okay. Oh, I just need to get on the Wi-Fi, Gary. Sorry.
Provo guest.
Okay.
Passwords and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So, some of you, this may be very foreign to some of you that have come into this, and you can see that there's some capabilities. I look at public works, energy, and parks and recreation, where you can now start tracking things in a system that you haven't had before, and it lets you start doing analytics off of those pieces of information, and via coordination maybe with Bud and legal and how you may want to roll that out through different departments to be able to have some good data to track safety meetings, to track participation, observations, and all this can help go towards lowering our insurance rates too. So the data would be helpful for both from a liability standpoint and a workers' comp standpoint, showing our efforts. So it's probably going to take some effort of the safety areas to kind of get together and decide how to make that, take advantage of that and make it work. This is designed, this is more of a large corporation type software in a way. When we saw Springboard, we were very happy with a lot of functionality and how modern the software looks. It was one of the better features we saw, particularly for knowledge transfer. If you think about things in your department that you want to have employees trained on, and you want to make sure they acknowledge that, and you want to have revisions of those documents over time, this system is what's called knowledge transfer system. We'll send those out, manage that. We'll use that for citywide policies that'll go out. Right now, we send an email out, Chris sends that out, and then that's important for when you need to hold areas of accountability for employees, make sure that they're getting distributed with information that goes out. So I think that's an area that's going to be a big change for a lot of you, to be able to now put all your standard operating procedures and your forms and things like that online in one repository instead of some directory on the S drive or somewhere that you get to that you don't have good revision capabilities. So I'd pay attention to that when we get to the demo, and I think it'll be helpful. We have a few more people who are going to be joining us at 10 o'clock, so I don't know if you have a few more minutes. You can cover, you have anything else to cover or answer questions before that, but then we get to the demo.
No, that'll be fine. So as Gary kind of alluded to, it's really, what the system really allows for you guys is, instead of chasing down paperwork, figuring out whether somebody did look at that document on the S drive or didn't, or do they know what they're supposed to know? Are they aware of the safe work procedure that you know, they're doing the job? Let's make sure they know how, right? So it's really a protection for both, you know, the employees and the company, right? So what the system allows you to do is, the system kind of takes care of those types of things, and then it gives you the information as to where the fall downs may be, where are you doing well, and then you can actually make decisions on what you want to change about your program, rather than just doing the tasks of trying to keep up with it. You know, if an auditor comes in and you've got to produce all kinds of paperwork and certifications, you go into the filing cabinet, you're trying to find them, they may or may not be there, right? And then it just takes hours and hours of time. So once the system is, you know, churning through and working well, all those things go away. And through the reporting and the notifications, you can actually determine, you know, make changes to your system that make it stronger, rather than just trying to make it work, right? So that's a big gain of the system. I'm having trouble on the Wi-Fi here. Is it?
Matt?
It's Provo Guest is the network, and the password is Provo Guest, all lowercase, all one word.
All lowercase, okay. I think
So
I was
there's no
doing it with
space.
Camel Case.
Just for example, Karen, how do you currently manage documents for training all of your employees on all the 700 processes you do?
All stored and we're storing them or
Right.
just managing them. They're just all in files, and they're either PowerPoint or Excel or Word documents. And one person pretty much maintains all of that.
So Karen has customer service, which handles a variety of work processes for the entire city. And they have a lot of workflows for training purposes, and for education purposes, for people that in their operation, as she has some turnover, they turn on, or it's an obscure area that they need to go reference to respond to the customer. How would this, how could she use it?
And I'll just add to that just a little bit, but we do, require that they each go through certain training. We add a new service on the board, and they must go through training and acknowledge that training. So it's basically a handwritten sign-off type situation.
Sign-in sheet and attended the training session kind of thing.
And we test them as well.
Yeah.
We get to test.
So you're checking to see if they're actually absorbing the materials that they... Yeah, so the system, so in those cases, I mean, if it's some of these processes that you have that you don't actually use that often, you forget, right? Like, I mean, if I'm not doing it on sort of a weekly basis, I'm probably not going to remember what it is. So all those materials, a lot of materials people do, it's just a single distribution, and then it's basically anyone who needs it at any time has access to it, right? So it's not an ongoing, you need to train on this every 6 months kind of thing. But a lot of those types of things you would need. Here's the initial training, and then you need access to it for whenever you need it. The system allows you to, so they would be able, so if that came up, they could just jump right onto the training page and do a search for keywords, crawls through the documents themselves, and gives a list of, these are the documents that contain what you're looking for.
So we prepare the documents that you're referring to searching to, correct? So
Yes.
it's not like you're creating them in your tool.
No.
We are creating them outside of the tool and we're linking to them.
That's right. Well, they would be uploaded into the tool. So, and you can do any format you like. You can PDFs, docs, spreadsheets, PowerPoints, whatever. If you're using videos, I don't know, do you guys use a lot of videos?
We do.
So we usually don't actually store those in the tool. We'll just have an external link to the videos, just because they're large and take a lot of space within the tool. So we have sort of jump out, play the video, and then come back, and you can sign off that you watched the video.
As well as our tests, we do have a link to a test that we create that would be outside link, I guess.
So, well, so it depends how you want to handle it. You can use the outside one, or we have a full online testing module. So you can build your own tests.
Okay.
You can incorporate it's not a strict LMS, but you can set it up like the LMS flow. So that's kind of like to present some information, ask 3 questions, present some more, ask again. You can set it up however you want. So you can integrate the content wherever you want within the tests. There's a bunch of test analytics that you can run to show you which questions are most frequently answered incorrectly, so that you can say, oh, well, is the question not clear, or is the material we're presenting to people not sufficient for them to know the answer? And then you can make adjustments based on that as well. So that's really helpful in terms of the comprehension side of the tool.
So would you be able to tell if I were to change up a test from one, let's just say from 1 year to the next? And capture that analytical information that we received as...
Yes, exactly. It's all revision. Yes. So the tests they go through the same document control process as all the other things. There's new revisions. So when you want to make those changes, you would actually deploy a new revision of that test. So all the old results would be stored against that old revision, and it keeps those together, and then you can actually compare those to what happened with the new one. So you can see if your change actually worked over time, right? Yeah. So no, that's excellent. So that sounds like that would be. What other external training do you guys use? Is there? Do you have like online courses that folks take?
No, not necessarily in our area.
No? Okay. Is there?
HR does. We have essential training, and then we'll step out of the office.
Okay.
And so that's something with new hires, they have to do.
Also
That's within a
orientation.
certain amount of time.
Okay.
Sexual harassment.
Okay.
And nobody talked about
Like early and safe return to work stuff, those kinds of things.
sexual, what else, Chris? Sexual harassment,
Workplace
discrimination,
violence,
workplace violence, diversity training.
Okay.
And then every employee's got to do it every 3 years.
Okay. And that's provided by an external company. Okay. All right.
I think we're planning to tie it in.
Yeah, because we could do it either way, right? If the content that they're providing is good and you want to keep with that, we could either house it in ours and just have them sign off right there and let it manage. So how do they manage the 3-year renewals? Do they tell you, or do you guys spreadsheet that and say this year John and Fred are due and that kind of stuff? Is that how it works? And then you got to chase them up and get them. Okay. So the advantage to putting it in our system is they would be notified automatically every 3 years, and you can put in a little buffer zone called a warning period that allows you not to go past due. So you say, okay, I want to notify these guys 60 days before. So the 2-month mark, it starts sending emails to them and saying, hey, this is coming up. Why don't you take care of it in the next 60 days so that you don't even go out of compliance. You're always in compliance. And it would take care of those notifications.
I'm from the legal department, and I'm trying to figure out how this relates to like the criminal civil division. But it's part of our department that deals with the safety of the
Okay.
city. But we do receive accident reports for our claims, but We don't really do any training. Outside of Bud.
So what training would Bud be providing?
I don't even
Well, he's
know.
the city safety officer,
Yeah.
and so really, to a certain extent, he doesn't provide very much training. He mostly works with, because he's the city safety officer, but there's individual department safety
Right.
officers. So mostly he coordinates with them and
Okay.
tries to make sure that they're doing what they need to do.
So in terms of the claims side, we don't have a claims processing, like we don't manage claims. That's not something that the system would do. The incident and accident reporting is more to identify why did we have 27 near misses last year
Okay.
in the parking lot.
So that's
Something is not
that
right.
we'll look at.
Yes.
As
So
far
he,
as our attorneys and our paralegals, we get the reports to decide on claims.
Mhm.
What if they're going to be denied pending or not.
I assume that the incident reporting can be set up so that the claims attorney is also one of the recipients of the reports,
Yeah.
just so we can save
Absolutely.
those for the future.
He can be a participant on the process of the investigation. And that way he'll have access to the results and/or as the incident report is being filled out.
Right.
So basically, is that incident report going through a workflow process like it is currently?
Yes, so when we get to the demo, I'll show you, it's sectioned out based on what sort of incident. Is it a spill, is it a vehicle, and that sort of thing. And then each of the participants of it would fill out their respective pieces. And then there's an approval sign-off process that kind of pushes it through that workflow. Is that your question?
No, basically, if it goes through a workflow process, that takes care of it going to legal.
Right.
Takes care of it going to specific individuals that we have currently in a workflow process right now.
So the way that it distributes, it uses the sign-off process to do that. So once the actual inspector, the incident owner has filled out their portion, they sign it off and it goes to the next level, which could be supervisor and/or legal. And at that point, then they would go in and
Who
review.
determines that?
That's determined by the owner. You can add and remove people from those signature sections. So there's a 3 signature section.
So we, I mean.
So whoever's responsible for it.
Well, no, it sounds to me like what's happening is that the individual filling out the report is responsible for who it goes to next.
No,
There's an owner, so there's an ultimate owner who's responsible for the incident. And that would be somebody,
The supervisor.
yes,
Okay.
yes. Who's responsible for putting on who should be in that workflow and who needs to do the sign-offs. And then other individuals are participants on it and they go in and fill in the sections that are relevant to them.
are those predetermined, or are you saying that the person filling out the report gets to choose who it goes to?
Gets to choose.
So what if they don't choose the right people?
Which is a common problem now.
So what we have on the notification side, depending on the type of incident that it is, there's automatic notifications sent out. So for example, if it's a fatality, like the CEO, like everybody gets notified, right, that needs to get involved.
So if it's, let's use a vehicle accident because that involves legal. So if it's a vehicle accident, an automatic workflow would make.
Legal will be aware.
So that still keeps it in the same type of
Yeah.
a workflow like it is now, which is good.
That's right. So we could do that, and we could actually, it doesn't do this right now, but this is a good conversation. We could set up the signature sections in a similar way, right? So depending on the type, we could have a list of those signature requirements that automatically fill in. So right now, it's up to the person who's responsible for the incident to take care of that.
Dan, we have a dedicated list which basically hits the supervisors so that the supervisors, whether they're maybe a department director, maybe they're an assistant director, whatever, that there's different levels of supervisors that are on that particular list to choose from.
Gotcha.
So that when they choose a mid-level approver, it's from a list that we have created. It's not an entire city list.
So we could tighten that up, because it's not that tight, as you were talking about right now.
Because there's specific people that it really needs to go to at the mid-level before it goes to a director.
Yeah.
If we're tying it into Kayenta knows who's the supervisor of that employee, could it automatically go to that supervisor?
And our system will know that too. So
But
Kayenta
that's-
shares that, the supervisory information with us.
That's not something that we necessarily want, because their supervisor might not be a mid-level, because it may be somebody above their supervisor that it needs to go to, not necessarily just, because you've got supervisors on this level, and this level, and this level. And it may need to go to a higher up supervisor.
Do you think if we did it, if we had supervisors by incident type, would that, no?
I believe every department's going to be a little bit different depending on how their structure is set up.
So how do you guys manage that process now?
I think, for instance, an example would be, you may have a foreman that is or a crew leader, but it needs to be reviewed by that crew leader's supervisor. It wouldn't go to the crew leader necessarily. And so they want to make sure that different structures are different departments. So it is a set structure if they're coming out of a certain area right now.
Right.
And so she can set up a set structure for each of the areas, but it may be different in different areas.
This would be different throughout the departments, depending on whether they're large or small.
So would it be my immediate supervisor though, or it could be
Not
a
necessarily.
different?
So let's say that it's somebody in the streets division of the Public Works Department that has an accident.
Mid-level would be Greg Beck,
Then it's gonna be the division director that's gonna sign off on it, right?
which would be Greg.
Right. So it's not their immediate supervisor that's gonna sign off, it's gonna be the division director, and then it goes to the department director or not? But if
In
somebody.
that area.
Yeah, but if somebody in, I don't know, the library staff, well, somebody legal gets in a car accident on the way to justice court, and this probably goes directly to the department director. right?
Well, not necessarily, because we like to have a mid-level in there, so we know that their supervisor actually thought.
We do have a workflow that's built on this that they can share with you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And you get that diagram.
Yeah.
So it's different for every department, especially when they're small.
So Pam, if you can get into that, probably the workflow diagram chart.
And I think that's exactly the stuff that, so for these discovery sessions, those are exactly the things that we're looking to capture over the next couple of days, right? How are you doing that now? How does the system do it? Is there a gap? That kind of stuff.
Well, Tony, I had a question on that because I know originally they talked about Springboard doing the accident reporting. And then I thought we had a meeting and it was decided that that was going to be handled in Kayenta because of all the OSHA reporting. Was that changed?
We went back to Springboard.
Okay.
And those are the OSHA, the 300 reports? Yeah. So we can, that's the other thing we're gonna have to go through when we go through the discovery over the next couple of days, is looking at those reports. So we're basically gonna look at the, any processes that are gaps. We're gonna look at any reporting that are gaps as well, right? So that would fall into there.
So when we have this workflow that's being done through Springboard or science compliance, will that still be in our list of workflows in Kayenta? So it'll all be accessed at the same place? Because I'm thinking you're going to have either, I don't know if the employee would be filling it out or the supervisor would be filling it out, so would it be in the manager or supervisor connect to be able to start the form?
No, yes.
So it'll all tie
it will
in
be-
that
yeah,
way.
Yeah.
So they won't know the difference which one it is, it'll look
No.
the same.
Right.
It'll just be processed through the system.
So
Yeah.
for our manager self-service, to start an incident request, it would start right from manager self-service.
Yes.
And we actually, you already gave us those, I don't remember what those are called. Those things, those connectors.
Yes.
And those, whatever those connector thingies are called.
So-
You gave us those.
So those are actually going into Springboard. So it's presented in Kayenta so that for the user,
They
it's,
see no difference.
that's right.
So,
And the same with the
have you
information.
turned over all the stuff we gave you to them? We have all the accident workflow, the forms, all that stuff's been handed in. Do we have to recreate that, or do you have that to give to them?
I have that, and I think I did, but I can give it to them, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, we're going to catalog all that. Did you give it to, was it to Tony Lynn or Kayenta?
Yes, I am Tony Lynn.
That is,
We've never met before.
So,
Trying to tell.
so we've talked a lot on the phone, but we haven't actually met.
Never met.
So I should recognize your voice though.
Yeah.
So,
I should just hold the phone up to my ear. Yes, so I have that, and I can also, I have all the accidents.
okay,
I think I did
Perfect.
send it over.
okay.
I sent it to Joe at one
To
time.
Joe, okay, yeah,
I'll
so
send it over to you.
we'll be compiling all that with the other.
Yeah.
So I have a question then about this. Are we going to be talking about all the accident and OSHA stuff today? That was my understanding.
I was going to go through a demo of the incident report, and then we can compare it to what you're doing currently, sort of what we're doing right now, and then we can identify any gaps that we have.
And is
That's-
that all happening today?
That's what, yes, that's the goal. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure.
Are you in the afternoon?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good.
She is responsible for accident reporting in
If
the
you
city.
couldn't tell.
Yeah, no, I haven't.
Maybe we should just give it to Renee, because she's so involved with it too.
She's not bad.
No, this is
Sorry.
your baby.
So you want to take your break about a quarter after?
Yeah, is that okay? Done on the-
So let's take a break and be back at quarter after. Be fairly prompt on that. Just want to give time for a couple of people that are coming from other meetings to be here.
Is that still will work as long as that work flow? Getting
He asked questions about other state just mentioned.
You need to. You had it pretty well handled.
More interesting questions.
Late anyway, it was,
No, I gotta call you later.
So,
I guess on the street, so I called him, I said, hey, you need to check my car. I don't think it's until the 18th. Clint called me. Red. Well, we can do it anyway. Let's just sit down. You guys saw the budget over. I think we already did, we already did. So that's why they're saying, let's just do it now, it's already in my house. They were under the impression they could do it in June. So.
it's pretty close. When was she due already?
Because all of a sudden, all these things are like, well, we haven't taken any.
That is from me over there. Yeah, so you, or other, the house is 4,500 square feet, you're going to.
So he wasn't in yesterday. He wasn't in Thursday. So I don't know if he
Three of my houses are
until the last minute, and he already had. So it's like 70.
But he doesn't mind, like, he loves having roommates, like, that is so easy, and that's one thing, he got his work, about specials, because he would drive them around, I don't understand. It's a Parks and Recreation, so that doesn't.
Provided or not, but it
So, they work on these things, there's two, yeah, something like that.
Big cat problem, got caught today. Thursday.
Yep. Inspections? Yes.
And so do they go out and we create
It'll be a wet,
Parks and Recreation, they have drop them.
I think it's all in the indoor.
This card. And it can be done on a tablet or something. And then it's electronically, and then it goes through, you know, and they can approve it right there on the tablet. Or if there was a problem, and then it's done, it's all electronic.
So if the inspection items are sort of the same.
Will you say that, Chair? Brett.
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
healthy junkie there.
Come up on their notification to say, every day inspection our tag, and the state, start an inspection.
Sorry.
Start an inspection thing, and then off they go. So that's how we do it.
And I assume we can set it up that it's like, we can set up all the different areas and like the 30 things that they.
Yes, that's all configurable, so you guys can make that over time. And if it's slightly different.
3 days. You're supposed to be here the next 3 days, bud. Hey.
Different places.
Right.
Because on the feed, you actually have the opportunity to just say this is not applicable, and it doesn't.
Are you staying for this afternoon?
Good, bad rating, inspection.
Right, and so then I've got the
Fire the
same.
same.
Well,
This is
the
our
fire
department.
department stuff. And on my calendar, I wasn't gonna come, but it looks like it'll be live because I help with the employee assistance training stuff and then just the training that you have,
Fire too, but there's a lot of.
safety stuff, so.
Really just to make sure, in Cubby 1, I've got oxygen, I've got tanks,
That's a totally different inspection. I'm talking about the inspection.
Yeah.
Have our fire marshal.
Yeah.
So this could take the place of what this.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
We can create multiple things with it.
Anything that you need to say, yes, it's good, no, it's bad, and then
Somebody needs to tell you, and then track it now. I was asking Tony about it over on the street. Anyway, and so we're wondering, we're just working on integration of them into the city view, so we're wondering, Tony says that you actually have your own document management system.
Yes. Yes.
So, we have to decide, are we going to utilize that? Or do we want to go into our one
that
system?
you already have. So we have a list of to do both. Some use ours, and some already have systems that they're very happy with. And we integrate with those and pull the documents actually in our system. They want to do it that way, or we reference their materials from our system.
Well, we want it so that people don't have to go into
Yeah.
Kayenta, there will be in Kayanta's LLC employees.
Brett?
How are you doing?
Right there.
Yes.
They don't even know they're going to
That's
go.
exactly seamless to them, yes.
So the question is, if we're maintaining that, say we decide to maintain that, is there additional costs? Do you have retention schedules built into that?
There are no retention schedules in ours. So we don't,
Sorry.
Didn't want to interrupt. There's something that needs a retention schedule. And I don't know.
So that's not the first
Hello,
time
bud.
it's been asked about.
How are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
That actually has been like
Did you get that
for us to look at
email?
doing.
Which
on
Matt?
the liability waiver form?
That's good.
Did that work out?
Yep.
That's what we
Sorry not to let you-
covered what we needed?
Yep.
Okay,
So
cool.
they have their own.
I didn't hear back from anybody, so I assumed
yeah.
it was what you were looking for.
Springboard.
Yep.
Thanks, yeah.
And
But
so
I know
we
I
have
haven't been
the
around,
option to
so-
say we're gonna use theirs, or we can integrate with Office. And so, if we were to use your system, we just have to have space available. Obviously, for the documents.
Yeah, they get
So would-
uploaded as part of the document.
I don't know, I'm just asking, because I'm assuming, say we decide to do it with the office, then we would want
I don't know.
integration.
He doesn't talk to me.
Well, there's a couple of issues either on
Right.
base and I have.
Yeah. And then what did he say? He wants to do something different?
But essentially,
Yeah, I think what they wanted was to just like be able to contact like the dispatch upstairs or something rather than contacting the police.
we pulled their contact.
At least I think that's why I was asking you when you were there, because that's where I thought the intent was, but I'm like, I don't really care, but I can just see where it could be dangerous. We have some loonies that come
The
in.
other ones, we just
I
have.
don't think they're the dangerous ones, but
Looking on.
they could be, you just don't know.
And, yeah, completely exposed.
Look like they all come off one big ranch.
Well, that's.
But they're big, little,
We have those.
Well, it might be nice to have it somebody outside of the city too, as well as contact our dispatchers, because then at least they could, if they're above it, they can send out some people. And then they can have a, you know, see what's going on, I guess. Yeah, they haven't said anything to me, so I don't know what they're planning on.
I mean, I think it'd be nice to have everyone on this, because they don't have anything, which I don't know. I don't know if
that's
you've
what
got
I told
retention
you.
schedules on your
We'll put them on
access.
gas. If we can get rid of them, I said, yeah.
Some of this,
He was
so I
scared at
think with Parks and
325, so I
Recreation,
want
their
to
retention schedule, as long as Parks here, you've got.
And then we'll
Like that for the.
So there may not be retention schedule on all of them.
Okay, look at that big Christmas, all right.
We just have never thrown them away.
And that's something I'm trying to get set up. We've got a person that's gonna be over on this, and that's one of the things she's gonna work on, is a retention schedule processing. All departments are on documents, and so, you know, that would be one question, is do we need retention schedule on these type of documents?
You have a pretty good computer program now that you track all this stuff, don't you?
So if that's the key for you guys, then that's what we're doing.
I remember you telling me.
Set up retention, not on the actual
You
document.
gonna have a switch? Now you got a switch?
Okay, good, that's why I just like the question.
I think there's.
What do you mean you don't know?
I know.
Maybe.
You can enter it all for me?
You know, the thing is, we don't have one really now. I mean, I keep going track on ridiculous way to do it. Well, I'm excited about something.
I created your own little spreadsheet.
Sorry. You know everything's in one place.
Because they kept saying, oh, we got this new thing coming, we got this new thing coming. Remember, we about a year ago about this same, is this the same company?
Come back when we got it fixed.
When we went to buy that in that legal office?
Oh. Training?
When about the, but it was the same thing, we
Online
tried
training?
it. Yeah.
Yeah, they track that too.
And obviously it's a different tool.
You know, it's called that,
Tony, when,
man.
you know, they go in and say, we've got all these analytics. So then, within like that.
When I track it on the spreadsheet,
We use that other company, we use that other real much, that we use, what was that meeting for?
I use it for their
You know, is that the concept?
training.
The concept is, yes, and then we have,
But I don't use them for tracking it. But they do track it. You can actually go on there and pull stats.
How many people watched it,
How many's completed it, say halfway during the year. A lot of stuff that don't really matter.
you might have like portal stats.
A lot of time on the computer sat there. Yours might be a little different where you got different departments and different types of training.
Yeah, cause like,
What works for streets won't work for stormwater.
right, yeah, Matt has no, he don't want nothing to do with flagging.
Yeah.
He hires his out. Then he's like, well, I got 4 guys I wanna bring.
You're actually seeing that data.
Good, we got big change coming up over there.
I assume that.
What's Gary going? Yeah,
Yeah, that's my boss.
oh, it's called Gary.
This is Gary, me too. You know how many times I've called him Gary? To his face? No less than 50.
In our discussion that we had last year, that was the question. Now what we've got is we've got an integration and
We have outside training.
She doesn't want to know there, but then now we've got, you know, we've got yeah.
What if I ever go, I just hit delete and then nobody else can have it?
We had John Anyway, we're talking about the integration.
A lot of this is like sell.
Because he said, you know, the Kayenta integration covers or will that, I'm thinking probably will not. That's what would make sense to me. Really set it that would be my guess. That would be really, yes, that would be. So theory, we were talking about integration. It'd be crazy if
Well,
and choice, they have people that keep the documents there or they have something. Yeah. And that was.
why should I go for
Yeah.
I don't want to change that.
I don't know how friends feel the same way. Yeah.
Just have, they don't want to change what they've been doing. The track it all. Just start teaching someone underneath you.
What on like the flagger?
No, just please get Springboard. The work flow. I mean, it's a big deal for them, like every ticket, well, you guys the same way. Every purchase, every ticket, every.
So we'll probably have to see if the application is able to work with them as well.
Well, them guys get stuck in the ways.
Solving all the problems that we can.
No, I set them all up on my right, so okay, wait till the middle of the night, and just have to
Two-year-old in a little bit.
two-year-old's down for a nap.
Oh, good. That's good.
5-year-old is watching.
I deserve it.
How are you, bud?
Good, how are you? Good. Good, you guys got the good seats.
That's kind of the way I feel about my staff.
Corner, you got.
You want to sit here?
Oh, maybe. Are you guys the principals?
I didn't know that until I sat here, and he could sit by me.
Well, I do call them my kids, right? They are my kids.
Hey, wait, that's what I said. Somebody has to take hold of this.
Well, now I'm afraid yes, I do. I'm going to be part of this discussion. I think my personal
Speech database, that's what I talked to Deborah about, it's the speech database.
You know what?
Connection.
We got guys out flaggers every day.
Oh, yeah?
Surviving so far.
You send that out, Mike? You closed that?
Sit here so you can have a computer up
Yeah.
and running. You have to sit by him though.
Yeah.
That you would throw him out. I totally do the same thing, so I can scoop one more.
I can kick the back of your chair to keep you awake.
I'll just hold it.
Yes. Probably.
Oh, I hope I'm not on.
Hannah is not me.
So, Dave and those guys are going through the schedule on that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Why don't you have them?
So Tony's got that.
I do.
Get all of it. Just can't stop scrapping.
Oh, it was wild.
That's why they do it, right?
She's a stay-at-home now.
He's an internet.
No.
Eric is his neighbor.
So they're
Over here in the city.
we want to process or we integrate. We're missing.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the best way. Yeah.
I'm wondering, you know, we have to.
So Boeing.
We got, is everybody back? We're good to go?
You're welcome. I can't imagine.
But honestly, you would have the person.
I will come for the first hour and see if it's
She ran water. She must have been okay.
See, I'm not one of those, thank you, Dick, for the candy.
You're not the little. Comes out. Cord, you want something? And I was thinking about it, I thought, boy, that's really.
See, this is why I need my space.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you did. Would have been over there. There you go, bud.
Okay, so what I'm going to show you now, we're going to just kind of walk through the product. Now this is going to be a little different than the interface you see through Kayenta. This is kind of the raw product. That's what Kayenta shows is sort of a filtered view of some of the screens. Okay, so we'll go through this. The initial screen, we can customize this to land wherever you want, but the dashboard here is usually where most people like to land. And basically this is an individual dashboard. So for me personally, this gives me kind of a view of my statistics as to how well I'm doing with respect to my certificates all uploaded correctly. Have I done all of the document reviews and select-aware that I should have? Have I completed my online tests that I need to? And are my competency checks completed? And then basically we've got some raw numbers down here that just give you a view as to, I've got 30 things that are on time, because the percentages can be deceptive if you've got large numbers or small numbers of items, right? I've got 9 items past due, 0 are in warning, So that kind of tells me what it is I need to act on as a user. So this would be a typical user landing page. Okay? And then down here you've got sort of just some stats as to I have 3 positions assigned to me. I'm a member of just one business unit. I don't have any users that report to me. I'm not a supervisor. I've got 74 published documents, 52 in draft, and I've got 26 comments that are so these are actually actionable. So if I want to see what the past due items are, I can just click on that. And it shows me what it is I'm not up to date on. Okay. So obviously the red is a color scheme. Red is your past due, so you're actually out of compliance with it. Yellow means that you're within the warning period. So basically you've got a little buffer before you're past due, but you should take care of it soon. And green means you're in good standing. So these obviously, this is a document review here. All I need to do for this particular one, so I can click on here, and this actually gives me the document. Pulls it up. The actual content in its native form, so you can have it in any form you like. Did I say save? I did. Oh, it's coming over here. So essentially it brings up whatever document that is. This is a Loomis pressure training document. And then I can review that. And then I simply say, I'm aware of that item. And my training is complete on that.
Can you, does it track whether or not you actually opened it, or like, can you set it to aware without opening it?
You can, yes.
You can?
Yes. So the aware is I'm certifying that I have done my part. Because there's no way to prove that I could even open it and still not look at it.
No, I'm aware of that, but what I'm thinking of is if they can prove that, I know you can't prove they read it, but I'd be more concerned if they can prove you didn't read it.
Yeah. This is a discussion we had a lot, right? So the way we present it is that you as a employee are affirming that you have opened this document and you're aware of it. And that's as far as we can capture what actually happened, without actually watching somebody read it. That's what if you then do a competency on that, so an online test to make sure that it's open material, that's the other side of that. But we don't track whether they opened it or whether they opened it for a certain period of time, or like there's almost no end to that, right?
Is there an option to pop up a dialog box, like when they click aware, something pops up that says, by clicking aware, I am swearing that I have completed this training, and then they have to click OK or something?
Yeah, like an affirmation page. Yeah. And on the online testing, we actually, that is one of the components of that. You can put in a page that's an affirmation page that says exactly that. And they have to click, I affirm that I am aware of this information. So if you want those tighter controls, you can do it through the online testing. So you can present the information, have an affirmation page that says, I read it.
Right. I'm not sure the whole system works, but my main concern, again, is not, I know that you can't prove someone read it, you could let it run or whatever the case may be. What I'm worried about is if you have like a sexual harassment training, something happens, a guy can come back in and conclusively use your data against you to show that it was impossible for that guy to have read it because he didn't open it, and your system tracks that. And then they can say, well, you should have known that he didn't actually read it.
You should, even though he affirmed that he gave it an
He just says
electronic
he's
signature.
aware of it.
Yeah, which isn't like an E sign, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But your software doesn't track whether they open it or not?
We do not track whether they open the document or not.
Then I'm generally okay with that. I just don't want a system that tracks that that I can use against me to say, you should have known he didn't read that.
Tracks it, but doesn't enforce it.
You should have known he didn't read it. I don't know how you'd be proving a negative, right?
Well, if you can conclusively show that he just zipped right through them all,
Yeah.
like, how do you read it, and when you read the next one 2 seconds later, or read the next one 2
It
seconds
does
later?
timestamp, like it does date timestamp that.
That's the part that I would get concerned about.
Concerned that they just went aware.
That someone could prove that, yeah, this is what he did.
Yeah. So, yeah, we can have let's take that offline. We have never done that, and our system has been used in legal cases to prove compliance for some utilities in Ontario who were fined due to, a worker got injured and they had to prove that all the training was done. And so this swiping aware and doing the e-signature held up. So that's what I can tell you. I'm not saying that we wouldn't consider doing that, but we haven't had to in the past.
I've seen training programs that will not let you continue until it's open. Like, you would not actually be able to click aware unless the system's actually been open.
And that wouldn't be a terrible change either, right? Like you would actually make it so they would click aware and the document would actually open right there.
Right.
And then they'd have to make sure that it was open. Yeah. I think the idea is that the onus is on the individual. If you're e-signing it, you understand that you're saying I'm aware.
It's good.
But that's where the competency side, the online testing comes into play, right? That's how it's going to be taken care of. So also on here, if you wanted to see the history of how this document has been, I completed it these days in the past. Now I'm logged in as an administrator, so I have the ability to remove records if there's a mistake. Normal users obviously wouldn't have that. Also under here we've got, this is that commenting feature. So basically back and forth between, so if I see some content in there that is not applicable or he's changing or John is mentioned in the document that he no longer works with us, whatever it is, then you can comment to the owner of the document. And then these comments are used during the document review process to make changes. So this is kind of that back and forth between the users and the document owner. You can also, if it's a sensitive item, you can make it a private comment that won't show up here. Only the owner of the document will see it. Okay, so there's a comment about something sensitive, you can do that. You can also attach, so if you are if you're commenting on something, you want to put some additional information in there, you can attach a document to it that the owner then can reference when they go through the review process. This is one of the online tests here. Basically, it says I've got you can max out the number of attempts before the supervisor gets involved. So you've got two attempts to this one, and it looks like the first one was failed. That's it. So this is just demo information. Obviously, it would be a little more verbose, and you would have you put in some nice content. Right. So this is the basic test layout. You can have any kind of answer that you want. You can only have one correct answer in the system right now. It doesn't support multiple correct answers. So you just go through, check the ones that are correct. Check them. And you can embed other content in here too, right? You could have pictures here if you wanted to, instead of just the verbiage there. Allow. once I'm done, save my answers. And sorry you didn't have enough to pass. I got one correct. Here. Sorry, my connection's not. So that's the testing mechanism. Now the other dashboard that's available, if you are a supervisor or an administrator, the supervisors on their dashboard have the ability to see how their subordinates are doing. So as a supervisor, you can get an overall view of all those people who report to you. So we just take a quick look at the manager dashboard here. This is my individual one. This is my manager dashboard. This gives me an aggregate of those people who report to me. So overall, my folks are 76% on certificates, 91 on doctor views, 0 on online tests, and 100% on competency stuff. There's 3 positions involved. They're assigned to me. 1 business unit, I have 4 users. And all these are clickable. And I can get the individual statistics for each of my 4 subordinates to see. So I can go in here quickly and assess whether I need to, go talk to Art here and get him up to speed on these 10 items that he needs to take care of. I can drill down into which ones those are. And as a supervisor, I may have the training records that, if I'm the one who collects the certificates on his behalf, then I may have some of these certificates and I can upload them right here. Just get him up to speed with things that I'm taking care of for him. So there's 2 ways on the certification side of things and licensing. If you need to upload documents, I don't know how you guys do it here, but you can either have the individuals upload those on their own, or if those are certificates that come in here to the administrative group, you can have them administered by the administrators rather than the individuals. So like when the guys get their certificates, they go out and do CPR training. Do they get their individual certificates, or do they get sent to the administrative group? They get them themselves, and then they hand them to you for a copy or whatever. So in that case, you could have them just upload them. So that takes that burden off of you.
So how do you, like, on the certificate where you have like a license or something like that, is there an approval process, like if they upload it, is it just looking to see whether there's an attachment there so it says it's done?
That's true, yes. So it takes the attachment and says, okay, this is you've uploaded your license.
There's something.
There's something there, that's right. So the supervisor can go in and audit those, and there is an approval process that you can force the approval so that, similar to what I showed you on contract compliance, is a little certified. Okay. So supervisors can go in, review the proof, and say, yes, this is good. Okay. So there would be an audit process still. And then for any of the my subordinates, I can go in and see what these items are. As an administrator, I can see what the entire organization, what's sort of happening at a glance in the organization, and drill through that. So obviously in the demo here, we've got 2,300 on time, 1,100 past due items, which it's not great. So if as an administrator you wanted to set up some training and things like that, you can look in here, by the training type, determine which ones are probably the big hitters that you can take care of right away. So this one, obviously, there's 65 people that are past due on health and safety training policy. That may cause you to say, okay, we're going to set up a health and safety training policy review meeting, pull these 65 in, sign-offs, and then that's off our plate, right? Okay, so let's take a look at, from the user perspective.
I don't know, but he turned around and gave him a look. What do you turned around and gave him a look, I said.
So obviously I wrote down the wrong password there. So I'm just going to jump into administration. So this is really just where for administration, this is all kind of the setup stuff, users, positions, the departments that we talked about earlier. Okay, so for users, oh, 2 minutes. That's So Diane is a typical user, so obviously her side palette here, she's got a lot of the stuff that she can access. And the side palette is manageable too, you can decide who gets access to which of the items. So Diane's got access to incidents and corrective actions and inspections and risk assessments, but that may not be the case for you guys, right? Depending on what you want her to have access to. So this is a typical training menu. So essentially it's kind of got the iPhone deal where, you know, if there's something that needs to be done, it's got the red dot over it. So under my training, I've got 8 things that need to be taken care of. 7 of them are categorized as health and safety. 1 of them is internal training. So when we go through kind of that document discovery starting this afternoon and for the next couple of days, we'll be determining these kind of categorization and how you guys do that stuff now. So we'll figure out how that needs to be organized. And these are basically subcategories. So this particular one's set up with health and safety and then basically the types of things that these are. So if we go through and let's take a look at policies. Okay, so these are those 6 items that are listed there that I need to take care of. So again, it's the simple swipe here. Now, right here, the health and safety training policy, this is that regulatory compliance check here. So the health and safety policy here is connected to 84 shell statements in the WorkWell regulation, or standard rather. So, and this lists what those are. And that's kind of helpful as an individual, because I can then sort of evaluate of these things that I need to get done. Obviously, the health and safety training policy is a big hitter because it's related to 84 different requirements of the standards that we're trying to get to. So I can determine as an individual what it is I want to actually hit today. I can submit the comments as well. Now this here is normally the edit. I can see the information that's related to the document control of this document, but I just can't change anything. So I have access to it, but I can't modify anything. So if I wanted to see how it was set up, I can see when it was effective, is it expiring, how often it has to be, renewal is here, every year, 30-day scheduling period, see all these things, when it's going to be next reviewed. I just can't affect any of those things. So I've had access to it, but I don't necessarily, I'm not necessarily able to change it. There's also, so a lot of stuff that you actually want to throw out there isn't actually necessarily required.
So this shows what's been pushed out to the employee?
Yes.
It shows that it's, so if there's a policy that I want to see that I've already reviewed, is this where you go, or do you go somewhere else?
Yeah, no,
Still
you go
housed
here.
there?
Yeah, it still appears here. So even if I've reviewed it, I only jumped into the ones that I needed to take action in. So if I go look in, well, here's some procedures, right much here that are taken care of. So all my stuff still resides in here, whether it's out of date. So this one is past due. I need to review this and re-sign it. This one is good, and it was signed off March 27, 2015. I'm aware of that. But I still have access to the information. Click here, still review it. So I can open it with Adobe, or I can save it, or whatever. So I still have access to all those things.
So if you sunset a policy, you replace it with a new one, what happens to the old one? Does it just, like, is your policy folder just going to be jam-packed with stuff, or does it drop off? Or?
Only the most recent revision is distributed to the user base. So the old revisions and all the sign-offs and all those things, they're still stored in the system, they're still accessible by, you can look up the user training history and all that kind of stuff. And that's all still there. Only the most recent documentation and testing and certificates are shown here. That keeps your stuff current. And to the user, it never changes that it says return to work program. That's always the same, but you may get a new revision. So depending on, you've got a choice when you make a new revision as a document owner or administrator. You can consider it a minor revision, where you just fix some spelling or minor stuff, and then it gets redistributed, and it doesn't force everybody to re-review it. If you, on the other hand, have a major, then you want to create a new revision and have it redistributed to everybody, because something big has changed, right? So everybody should retrain on it, even though it's out of their normal schedule. Okay? And the other thing here too is, so red is obviously past due, green means I'm in good standing, black here are optional items. So these are things that you want me to be aware of, but I don't necessarily need to sign off on it. So a lot of times forms and things like that I may use once in a while, but it's not part of my regular job. I don't need to actually review the documentation. Those are considered optional items. So it's distributed to people, but it's not requiring them to have any feedback against it, okay? And basically, my only option for those is I can view them. So I can just download the content or whatever's appropriate there. Okay? So that's the optional items. And that's the other thing that we're going to have to kind of go through over the next few days, is we'll figure out which are the required things for people to be doing their jobs and working safely, and which are the things that are optional and not necessarily need to be signed off on. Okay, so now let's take a look at the incident report.
Question for you on that. With some of the policies, I know some of the departments actually have training videos with regard to a specific policy.
Yep.
I saw that you've got documents, is there ability to embed the video there so they can just click on the video,
Yes.
watch the video and?
Yep, the videos are supported too. I'll look for an example of that. Generally, if it's a small video, you can upload it, but there's a limit on the size. Obviously, like some of these videos can be just massive.
Sure.
So we house them on a, plus the issue with that too is it really, if you upload them into the system, you have to download the whole thing before you can watch it.
Sure.
So we host them on a streaming video site, and then we just link out to that, watch the video, and then continue on. And actually, a few of our clients embed the videos directly in the online test. So it's like, watch the snippet. Did you absorb that? Answer these questions, and it moves forward in that way. So you've got those couple of options, but yeah, it's supported.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, videos are becoming like ever more popular, right? Nobody wants to read anything anymore. Now you can, oh no, that's for tomorrow. I was going to say you can schedule incidents. If we knew that were going to happen, we would stop it, right? All right, so I'm going to grab one here that's already been started. So, so this is our standard incident form that we deploy. So basically, there's sections of the form, and the ultimate goal here is we're probably in over the next half of the year, so in the next 6 months, we're actually going to make these configurable sections, right? So I think this will answer your question about if you've got a bunch of stuff that's not included here, what do we do about that? So if there's gaps, we would add additional sections to collect that information in here, right? And then those would be configurable to the organization. So you could pick and choose, basically, plug and play which pieces. So this is the standard one that we have right now. And most of the forms follow this same kind of setup.
Can I get a quick clarification?
Sure.
On your definition of difference between an incident and an accident form? Are there incident forms and accident forms, or the same thing?
All the same.
Okay.
All the same, it's just the type. It's going to be the type of incident. Was it an accident? Yeah, so I keep saying incident accident, but it's actually the same form, it's just typed. And so you'll see when we go through the different types. Okay, so this is the simple form. So if I actually had set up the system just to do the simple incident entry, this is all I would need to do to actually get an incident going. So this is more for organizations who this is too overwhelming for them. This is not, part of their core business, and they're going to continue to do it the other way. They just want to be able to upload some information into the system to catalog that an incident occurred. I don't think that's applicable for you guys. At the top here we've got, so save the form at any time. You can also print the form. So these forms here are printable. They go through our report. You can set up the output for those to do whatever, which could be your OSHA forms, could be this print. In this particular one, it's just a standard print. So here's the general information, a quick demo that it shows on here, and then you've got an actual long description of what's happened. Section A is risk evaluation. So if you have an external report number that you want to include in here, that's for just record keeping, you can put it in there. And then was there potential on this for serious injury and fatality? And that's captured, that's actually reported on the scorecard, how many of those you had that actually had potential to be serious. And then all of these drop downs here are configurable to whatever it is you guys want them to be. So these lists are maintained within the system and tailored to kind of how you want to track these certain items. I don't know whether this would actually be applicable quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily. You may need more or less of those. These here, this particular one is Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Environment, Natural Resources, and the Electrical Safety Association. So if any of those are involved and we need to maintain those report numbers for any of our reporting, that's where we would put those. So here's the typing. So in here, you would have, this is configurable within the system too. These are just for demonstration, right? These would be tailored to whatever you guys make sense for you. So we've got some damages, health safety system injury or illness, no lost time, and then we've got lost time injury and near misses in this one. As well as serious electrical incident, public electrical contact. So these basically roll up into the reporting by type. And then if it didn't fit in any of those categories, you could also put a different one. And then we've got the subs here to determine subtype. Okay, this is the incident and accident. This particular one we used internally to track customer, whether customer get incidents with customer projects. So this is where you have incident, accident. So that would type it out. And then you can set up secondary ones as well, which actually just put the same thing. This one's not a great. So this is what happened essentially.
And all those fields are configurable.
These are all configurable. So this is kind of this is what we'd have to go through with what you're currently doing and saying, okay, these are the things you track for that would go into these areas.
So when you say the fields are configurable, but then at the beginning you said you're about 6 months away from making the areas configurable, what does that mean exactly? Like,
Oh.
Are you saying report type has to be there, or could we not have that there, or?
Yeah, that's right. So basically, the form is as the form is. Now, the data that's collected in all of these drop-downs, you can set that up.
Right.
What we're working towards is where we can substitute Provost section B for this section B, right? And then you would say, yeah, you know what? We don't want secondary incidents. We don't use that, but we do collect this information, and that would be represented here.
But right now the form is as the form.
The form is the form.
So I have to take all of that, regardless of whether I use it or not.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can leave some of those blank, though. I mean, they're not all required, right?
Right.
There's only some that are. So yeah. So we're working towards that, and that's going to be part of the discovery that we go through. Okay. And then usually with most of these, we've got an other section where if it doesn't fit in any of these, you can put in another if it's some sort of incident type that you've never seen before. Date time stamps, which department listing obviously is configurable within the system. Which department's responsible for the incident. Named injured employees here, so anybody that was actually involved. Location, this is just strictly text, so you can add a little more detail into sort of north side of the street, that kind of stuff. The data was reported on, who it was reported to, who the crew leader was. So basically a lot of record keeping here so you can do your follow-up, talk to these folks, that kind of stuff. Is there a lot here that's common to your form, Pam?
There's quite a few.
Okay.
What about, do you have the ability, like, so for Parks and Rec, we have a lot of participant accidents, and on our form that we use right now, we actually have a map of the facility, so we can specifically mark an X if this is the area. Is there any way to do something like that?
That's pretty cool. We don't integrate with mapping.
It could just be a picture that we could upload and they could somehow put an X on it.
Yeah, so on all forms, you've got the ability to, it's right here. So on all forms, you can upload attachments.
We wouldn't, but it wouldn't be something that like, we wouldn't want the staff that was filling this out to upload something. It would be more if we could embed a picture that you could somehow check on.
In those types of incident in that form. So it would always come with the picture?
Did you say you could have different forms for different departments?
Currently, no. So the form is this is for all departments right now.
So embedding that
would not be useful.
So I actually have an example of what Carl is talking about. I just have to add this. This is at our ice sheet. And the employee fills this form out, and there's the sheet link, and that's where
they can just mark it off right there. Yeah, no, that's interesting. No, we haven't. Yeah, that's not something we're doing right now. That's,
It's not for employees.
This is not employees, this is
It's for patrons.
For
And
folks
then
at
the rec,
the park.
and then the rec center has one that has the map of the rec center.
Yeah,
correct. This is.
But these are all patron, these are not
This is patron.
So currently, we don't have what we use for the city, each department, if they need to, they have their patron. For somebody who gets really different, a patron, not an
that's not what you deal with. So the ones that you do deal with, Pam, which ones are
It's all employees.
all internal stuff?
Internal.
And then you've got the external injuries that occur.
So it'd be very helpful to have
Some,
your own
Flavor, yeah.
for each area that you could access through a portal.
So what would you think would be the common, how much of that would be common to, because a lot of it, you got to collect the same stuff, right? And then there's some exception based, like obviously you've got the locations more important.
And it's, yeah, we send it to legal. Oh, send you a copy, yes. You know, there's a couple different things, such as, you know, for an employee one, you're gonna require them to be drug tested and stuff like that. On the patron one, there's a section where we have to put, did they accept care, or did they refuse care, kind of that kind of thing. If it was a minor, we have to have a guardian that signed off.
Okay.
To take them home, that kind of thing. So it is a little bit different.
Yeah, no, and these, the ones that, because, so applied science is really an internal tool, right? So we haven't kind of gone as far as you're talking about there to deal with those. As far as we've gone is to you can put in whether it's a contractor or an internal employee.
I mean, right now, we're doing it separate,
Yeah.
so maybe we just have to continue doing it.
Well, I mean, the hope would be not though,
Yeah,
right? Like, I mean, it'd be
correct.
great if we could aggregate that all in. So I think, so let me put that down as one of our possible gaps.
I think it speaks to your inability right now to modify those, you know, per departments and stuff like that. I mean, if you
Yeah.
can crack that,
Yeah.
then I think that opens that up a lot.
No, I think
Very
you're right.
helpful to us.
I think you're right, and even on that note, because you guys have a lot of departments, we were considering, so the plan that we had for it was to be able to do it by the entire organization, right? So Provo would have its flavor of the incident, but that's not even going to be enough, I don't think.
Well, for our purposes, that is, for the employee, like for an employee reporting an incident, that works for us. Right now, the limitation on how you guys have set it up is we've moved away from this kind of catch-all form where the employee has to pick and choose which ones are applicable and which ones are not. We'd like to be able to have them only fill out the ones that are needed, and if they make a selection, then they move on to the next one, depending on what they choose.
Yeah.
What they're talking about obviously is very different and would need to be sorted by department to say, you know, if you have an accident here as a patron, then, you know, show the ice rink or show the rec center map or something like that.
And how many different flavors of those would you have for the ones that are for the patrons?
We currently in our department have 3.
Okay.
Volunteers.
Was I including the county
center.
That is not including the Covey Center, thank you. We have 4.
So we could have the potential for maybe 6, maybe,
Does that include your parks?
yeah, 6 or so.
I mean,
Or 12.
Yeah.
Or 35.
The gun range, the golf course?
I mean, I don't know if the golf course and the gun range probably have to be separate, that's true.
The advantage of that is that then when they have to fill the staff, it can quickly be done online. It goes through the workflow system to legal, because oftentimes there is claims that come in through legal that they have to.
Yeah.
But those forms, Kari, there's multiple forms, but they're multiple more because you've got the mapping of the facility, right? The
Correct.
information gathered is all the same with the exception of, this is a picture of
Certain
the rec
section.
center, this is a picture of the ice arena, this is a picture of the
And there's just some
shooting sports
specific
bar.
questions, like the ice arena asks, were they wearing skates that were ours or their own skates? What skate number, so that we can go and inspect the actual skates. So there's some specifics like that are specific to that area.
And they're just paper right now?
Correct.
Is the map only, I mean, I know you have a map of the ice rink, but I guess I can see how that would be applicable in the rec center where you have, you know, not sure it's as applicable for some of the other areas.
No, and it's not. It's more for like the rec center that we can narrow it down exactly where this happened. If you just say the gyms, we want to maybe know a little more specific than that.
So I think if we were to actually, okay, so do it by department and then actually have the flavors for that department that have specific, you know, we could add and remove sections. So we'd basically be making this as configurable as the inspections. So let me just. Yeah. So I have a department at Parks and Rec, right? Is that? And then from Parks and Rec, I have these 4 flavors that I can choose from. One is the ice rink, one is the golf
The rec
club,
center.
the rec center, and whatever else. And then we can add and remove excuse me, these sections based on that, and add new sections with, you know, the picture or whatever it is. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
If you tie that into the accident report for the employees, will it add to the accumulation of information, or will it be something? You wouldn't want it to be on the same information as the employee information, does that sound right then?
Yeah, we definitely do not want to have it integrated with the employees because that could skew them.
Sure, no, we could, well, we could set it up so it's by type, right?
It's either an employee or a patron.
Yeah,
Or a
exactly.
volunteer.
Yeah, yeah, and then you can report on those separately.
Volunteers have to count as an employee.
As employee? Okay. So yeah, we could have those, for reporting purposes, they could be separated easily, right, by the different category types. Okay, let me just make a couple notes.
I think Parks and Recreation is the only department that does any patron reporting. Is that correct?
Maybe the library?
Maybe. I've never seen anything from the library, but it would probably be good if it did. But I've not seen anything from them.
Well, I guess that was when they were over, their hand burn.
What do you guys do if somebody slips and falls on the steps?
An employee or a patron?
Somebody coming to pay their utility bill?
That's a patron.
That's a patron as well? Okay.
If they come in, so that, typically what we do with a situation like that is that they actually have to, they come in and they file a claim in the legal department. We don't necessarily, unless Karen in HR, Karen in 311 might open an incident for it, but typically, as a city, we don't necessarily open an incident until that individual walks into legal and says, I'm going to file a claim, here's my paperwork.
So
And then we would open an incident.
So does that get lumped in though with your employee numbers? No, you keep that separate. Okay.
It's just because we track everything that comes through the call center, it's just a request, a file, and then it comes into legal and they take it from there.
Okay.
So it just gets closed out in legal.
Parks and Recreation is more proactive in that regard, which is nice.
Because we have
And,
daily.
and the library, they're like that too.
So I've not seen the reports. They might have
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
there's library.
They don't send it to legal then.
So if you needed statistics on if people are slipping and falling out front of the building, Would you know that?
We would only know to the extent that they filed a claim. If they didn't file a claim, we wouldn't know.
So you go count claims to figure that out, okay?
Did we determine that you have a current workflow or not? One would have to be determined with all this.
Yeah, a workflow, so
Do you have the work, or not?
No.
Not yet, okay.
No.
will there be?
Yes, there can be, yeah. So we basically, through notification is how we manage that in the workflow, but I think you guys wanted that a little tighter, right?
We currently have approval.
There's an approval flow, yes, but I don't think that Pam was thinking that was sufficient.
Wasn't what we want, at least what we have there.
No, we have an approval, you don't have approval, you just have a notification, right?
We have an approval, a sign-off. I think, though, the discussion was that
Multiple levels of that?
it was who had set these sign-offs. Yeah, now my note here for the incidents is to compare with your current workflow and determine how to set workflow, so.
Yeah, I mean, all we do is an approval process as well. The only difference maybe is that we can set multiple levels to it.
Yeah,
So that sounds like what you can do.
yeah,
It's just we have to determine who we want to have on that
Yeah.
pick and choose list.
I think that's what the issue was.
Yes, that was what we talked about.
So once the investigator is done, he signs off, and then basically these levels of the reviewer and then the actual department, in this case it's the Public Safety and Environment Department, has final sign-off on this, which will be different for you guys. But these people who are on here, you can add and remove them, and I think there was concern over who could add and remove them. So I've got to go through how you're doing it now, and then we'll map it to this, and then we'll say here's the gaps, and then we'll have a discussion about how we resolve those.
Trying to see how that would happen, like that. The citizen that did qualify, you know, that we have that fall out, was that?
Yeah, and we do have the video.
And, you know, we waited, pretty much, they ended up coming in and filing, but, you know, they came to the counter too, didn't they? I think they came
They
to the
did.
counter first to put the complaint in. Could we have could we use this to submit that through and it go to workflow for you instead of, I mean, we have so many workflow solutions right now. It's
Yeah.
like placing it where it needs to go, you know, the right place from in our workflows.
We could definitely do that, because that's essentially what they do in Parks and Recreation, is these are their potential claims. They may or may not ever make it to the level of a claim, but they gather the information so that we have information close to the incident. So we could expand that. It's just,
I think that would make sense for us, and, you know, let's put it where it needs to go so that we're not having to close out of one system and.
And I think you could,
That's true.
I think you could create a generic form for patron
Yeah.
incidents, and then just tweak it with parts.
Right now, the only way you can parse that out though is by type and stuff. Like you don't have separate forms, you have one form.
That's right. And then the type basically rolls up to the reporting of the aggregate numbers.
But is your system set up so that you can notify certain people based on what type it is?
That's exactly right, yeah. So if it were a, you know, member of the public, then you could be on that notification for any type that's public incident or public accident.
So the only, I mean, right now our system is set up so that it does exactly that. We ask certain questions and if it involves, now it's employee based, so now it's, if the employee hits a citizen or something. But it does say if the citizen's involved, yes or no, it fires off to Bud, but it also fires off to the, you know, the potential claims person. We're okay with that as long as we're not getting all of the ones, we don't want all the ones that involve a citizen but have nothing to do with an employee.
Oh, I see. So, yeah.
HR
So we have a
does,
bunch of
legal
different
ones
types.
does.
Legal ones,
Yeah.
HR doesn't.
Which is
Like
how
that
we could type them that way, right? We could sub them or have a secondary that says this is a claim, possible claim, or this is claim worthy or whatever.
And it may not be an accident, like it may be that incident, maybe it's a backed up sewer, somebody's going to some damage that the city has done to property or something like that that they want to, we're taking that call or we're taking that counter and they don't even need to come to you yet. It's going to you directly through electronic means, and then you guys follow up.
And do you take care of the claims for all departments?
Legal does. I don't.
Oh.
But legal does, yes. That's another attorney in the office, but I work very closely with him because I look and assess risk of problems going in the future. He handles the claim itself.
Okay.
But I look at it and say, okay, are we getting a rash of these? And do we need to address an issue in that area?
So you're aggregating a ton of information to figure out what we're doing, what's happening out there most of the time that we need to address. And then do you evaluate that against the potential payout? Is that how you do it? Does that come in?
Partially, that's some of what we do.
Part of the assessment?
It is. Right now they keep an Excel spreadsheet that talks about, it was an automobile accident and its payout was X amount of dollars. And we keep that on a spreadsheet for 70 claims or however claims a year, because then we can go back and look at that and say, well, how much have we paid out on auto accident this year? Yeah.
So I think for this will be able to tell you what's happening most, so that you can look into that. But I don't, on the claim side, we don't house the claim information. There's a section.
Which would be fine, I think probably preferable.
Yeah. But this could alert you to potential risk, right? That would be great. And really any of the departments, once we get there. Okay, so identifying information. I think we got most of the there. Then there's the modified duty lost time. If there was any of that, that's tracked on the scorecard. A lot of this is for scorecard reporting. We've got, and then for the injury information, you can pick. These are configurable lists again, depending on how far you want to get into those. There is a cost, which that's usually filled in at the end. And to tell you the truth, I don't think most of our customers are entering cost anyway.
You don't know that until you claim.
Yeah. That ends up being on the claim and nobody goes back and fills these in, so it's just not something that we do. Enviro indicators, the environmental area that this occurred in, if that's important. Employee was working alone or with the crew, so then you can kind of pinpoint because they were alone, you can see the statistics against that kind of stuff. And were they supervised at the time of the incident?
Do you say that you could identify which sections of the form are filled out by certain people? So the employee comes in and only needs to fill out sections A, B, C, then it goes to the manager and they fill out section, D that was safety involved and what
We don't
done.
mandate that. So we don't say.
They get the whole form.
That's right. So whoever's a participant on this incident gets to go in and we're relying on them to pick to fill in the sections that they should be filling. So most of these, when there's an incident, most of these are done by a designated sort of incident investigator type person, right? So they end up doing almost all of it, and doing the interviews and things like that. And if there is like an employee needs to write down what happened and that kind of stuff, that gets entered in here as an attachment and or notes by the actual incident investigator. So that, which could be a supervisor or whoever's trained to do it. Is that how it works for you guys? Yeah.
Well, but a lot of the questions you're asking are handled normally by Pam. What was the body part and what caused it? I don't know if she wants that. You want that to go to each
Well, you don't have choice for some of the things on this form.
Well, that's correct, as of right now, yeah. Yeah, so basically the way that we do it is Pam would, the expectation of the supervisor is you go in and you fill out these pieces. And then it gets, you sign up and then it goes to Pam. And then Pam would actually take
So they
care of
just
all
know
the rest.
which parts they're supposed to do.
Yeah, through training and, they would be orientated on how this is supposed to work.
Basically, this form is going to replace our PeopleSoft form.
This is, under the current format, it's a step backwards for us.
Okay.
Huge.
We moved away from this pick and choose aspect a year or 2 years ago.
To a more
To
free text, free form text?
No, more of a smart form, meaning if you click yes or no, and so for a vehicle incident,
Yep.
earlier on, if you click no, you don't even see that.
The section goes away. Yeah.
It doesn't go away, it doesn't appear.
Okay.
But the information here is everything that we would have, that I would enter into PeopleSoft
Yeah.
to gather and run reports. That's why all of this is here.
Yes.
So
is it are we talking about the formatting more than the content here?
It looks like you mostly have the content, we structure it a little bit differently, but yeah, it's all here. It's just that you've got six sections or so that you have to kind of go through, or you have to teach employees to, you don't have to do this or avoid that or whatever the case may be.
Gotcha.
Well, and the reason being is because this is also taking the place of what I would enter in PeopleSoft, which is this much compared to what everybody has to do, and this is the part I have to do, which is all of this here.
Right, and so this is good if it's in here and we can just transfer it into the system. So, I mean,
But
there's
it's
advantages to it.
It's just cumbersome for whoever is filling it out. Is that what you're saying, Renee, Daniel? It's just cumbersome for the individuals because they're not accustomed to seeing all this.
Well,
Do
there's
it on a
certain,
daily basis.
yeah, there's certain aspects of it that'll, if it's just click, if it's just drop down menus and click, I'm not too worried about that. I think it's actually kind of easy to do. We would need to be able to configure some of these to say, I don't want to see this, or let's change the name of this. I know you can configure the drop down menus, which is great. We would just have to take concerted effort to look and say, all right, how can we structure this to be as efficient as possible?
Yeah.
So,
Can you go in and say, if this is an incident, then certain fields are required versus if this is an injury, other fields are required? Can it be separated out by that type?
Which is what I'm thinking. So I think for what we're talking about here, because if you do go in and you say, oh, it's not an environmental issue, an environmental incident, then we don't need spills, right? I think is what, why have that even on the screen? That should go away, kind of thing.
correct.
Yeah. So in terms of that, because the form presents everything, and you fill out the pieces that are applicable. Is the way it's working right now, right? Which I think you guys don't like that as much because, obviously if somebody's filling it out, I don't want to be bothered with all these details that I don't have to worry about. That just creates some confusion, right? I think basically is what I'm saying.
Correct.
So if we had a way to remove the sections that were not applicable based on type at the beginning, then I think we'd be close to what you're looking for, right?
But yes, but it doesn't hinge on just one type, though. I mean, we have a variety of questions that we ask, particularly when it comes to drug testing. And so if it is an employee form, there's 5 criteria. If they click yes on any of those criteria, the drug testing information pops up.
Oh, I
If
see.
they click no on any of that, they don't see the drug testing information.
Okay.
Same thing with the vehicle. Did it involve a city vehicle? Yes, then it pops up because we use this also to notify our fleet that there was an incident with the vehicle, and they look at it and determine whether or not they need to bring the vehicle into.
Yeah.
But vehicle involved could be a type, right?
Well, right now it's just yes or no, and then if it's yes, then they write in the information. So what I'm saying is there's not just one type to say send it down the stretch, and there's several of them.
It's conditional display, basically.
Yes.
So on a condition, I'm going to show or not show certain things, which actually is, like in the spill section here, that's exactly some of the requests we've already got for the form, right? So people have said, well, look, if this isn't, if I don't click this, then, you know, I don't need to see these, right? So that's exactly it. So, yeah.
We just want to take it one further. We don't want to even see spills unless it's important.
As we're discussing this, being the discussion, so HR collects certain information that they then track, and then they'll forward on to our insurance company. So they handle that. Some of the things that personally from my position, risk management safety officer, that I like about this is we currently, unless the department's safety officers are actually doing this, we don't have a tool in place for a risk assessment, an assessment of the accident, which is, that's my component, that's not HR. So right now they're separate completely. When I look at this, I really like some of the things where you're saying, no, you've got to go do an analysis, and you've got to sign off on it. Cody and Brett have got to get in on every accident, and they do this, and then that can then be forwarded on to me, so that we're doing a risk assessment on each thing. I do like that aspect of it, but I know that that is going to be, right now, Provo City, they're separate and distinct, because we don't want if we don't get the accident reported to our insurance company within a certain time frame, they typically like to see it within 24, 48 hours. If they don't get that, that hits us on our premiums.
Gotcha.
But as far as a risk analysis, which is the greater detail that I'm seeing in this that I think would be good for Provo, if that gets done a week down the road, that's fine. But they need their information within 24 hours.
Right. I think the issue is not with the content itself, right? I mean, I think the content is, for the different people that are using the form, is, you know, there may be some adjustments that need to be made, but for the most part, this is what needs to be reported for incidents, right? I think the issue that we're talking about is how do we display it in a way that hides detail from people who don't need to see it, and is smartly presented for the people who do.
I think that's accurate, but kind of adding to what Bud is saying, and I understand, you know, the situation that he's in, and I think he's accurately told our concern with that is, you know, we don't want to be delayed because they have to do a week-long investigation. So when I look at this, right now I'm looking at one form that's kind of designed to catch everything. And I don't see it working kind of that way. I don't think it's the most effective way to work it. I look at it as more of a workflow process. That we have an issue here, it starts the issue, and then it starts Bud's issue afterwards, or it starts this thing with fleet, or it starts this with claims, or something like that. As opposed to having just kind of one catch-all form, I look at it more of a bifurcated process that kind of leads to each other depending on what you select.
Maybe what we could do is in that form type, you've got an initial, say, I don't know what you call it, but let's say we do an initial report, and that happens to be the report that HR needs. Then that notification comes to me that has been filed, to Cody and Brett get their copy of that, and then they go back in and they do a second report type that's called an accident analysis, and have that be a separate form that then goes into greater detail. But then the initial reporting, just do it separate, completely different, because they are different.
Unless the sections can be identified, and only the section, you know, Pam gets it first because there's an injury or an incident she needs to be aware of and does her part. That same form is sitting there, but she didn't see the part Bud has to worry about, or these guys have to worry about. So then that form is still available. One of the problems we have now is the form gets done and then it gets put into our document imaging system and it's done. But now I'm thinking this is more of a live form. We've done this much and it's just sitting there, and if nothing else needs to be done, we're done. But if there was an accident and the department or Bud needs to go in and there's an additional section that's going to be done, that form's there. They don't touch anything that's already been done here, but they have a whole other section they can work on. And it's all one form, but they pick a different part of.
But it sounds like the way this form works is it doesn't fire off until it's done.
Well, or they even can see it, but it doesn't impact what Pam does.
Well, I was wondering how flexible is your sign-off approval system, right? I mean, can they do sections A, B, and C, and then Pam can sign off on it from HR, but it also goes to Bud for sign-off, and he doesn't sign off on it until they've done D, E, F, and G.
Different section.
Right.
that's not systematically controlled, if that's what you're asking. So basically, it's relied on those folks, right? So Pam does her part, and then she signs off and says, okay, now it goes to the next. And then he would go in and he would take care of his pieces. But the system doesn't force him to do those. It's up to him to take care of that, right?
But it would allow her to, it would allow Pam to see it before D, E, F, and G are actually.
Yeah, there's an approval. There's an approval on those signatures. So whoever signs off, there's an approval loop that goes back to the incident owner that says, hey, they signed off. Are you good with what they did? And then you can approve them. And then at the very end, the form is lost, right? There's nobody to do it.
I think you can make it work either way. The main issue is not delaying the form until absolutely everything is. So if it's kind of an informed approval and then finish it up, that's fine. Or whether you split them up and say, you know, this triggers this, I don't think it matters either way.
And just require training so people either know that it
Doesn't
doesn't so much or.
The less complicated it is, the better. I mean, I think the easiest thing to do, and I say that without any knowledge of how to program anything, but it would seem like the easiest thing to do is once you complete the initial form, that form can be moved into a different form and transfer a lot of the same information over, and then you start a different process.
Can you just make that work?
Yeah, I'm doing it right now. I'll have that all set in no time. No, I think, I mean, we've got lots of options here. I think I would like to see, is it possible while I'm here for the next couple of days to see a walkthrough of that? The PeopleSoft one that you've got on? I'd like to see that, yeah. Okay, great.
Dope.
Yeah, perfect, yeah. Yeah, if we can do that today, that'd be great.
Pam would probably be your best point.
Okay. When do you have to go? You're here all,
He's here all week.
All day.
No, she's here all day.
I'm here all day.
No, I know.
Oh, are you going there? Oh,
That's why she's trying to make sure it gets taken care of.
If not, there are other,
We
could show.
also be better.
There's also a cause analysis section, so there's also a detailed description if you want to add, obviously, a lot more verbiage. That's just information for collection and reporting. And then there's the cause analysis section, basically trying to identify what caused this thing. Was it action? Was it the condition? So then you can actually take a look and do some analysis on what's causing these things rather than just how many are we having. Now, is that something?
See, from my standpoint, I love that.
That would be great.
HR would hate it. I love it.
So we'll make that do
It's
it.
detail, and I like the detail, need the detail.
We don't hate it, we just
Right.
want it in its own form.
We just don't want to consider that.
Yeah.
It's just cumbersome.
Because that, it's cumbersome, it makes it so the employee doesn't want to fill out their report, and then we can't report it to
Yeah.
the insurance company, and then we get in trouble with the insurance company, and so that's where theirs simplified, makes it really quick for an employee to get in and just say, this happened, I've been to work with, I'm back to work.
Yeah.
The discussion that Bud and I have had in the past on issues like this is, is it really necessary to make a supervisor fill this out on every single incident?
Yeah.
Or is it something that Bud says, look, we need to investigate this further, and he initiates it? That's one of the issues that I would think of.
Yeah, totally. We may not want to go into root cause analysis on every accident.
Sure.
If we see that we're having a lot of slip, trips, and falls by employees at the rec center, then we're going to need to start doing it.
So how does that get filtered to you now? So something happens out in the field.
He gets copies of every accident report that is submitted.
Oh, even if, so not even by type, you just have to go through all of them and go,
look at them, and
this
then
one, this one. Oh, I see.
And then Pam and I will work together often if she sees something that says, hey, you know, I've got a lot of firefighters getting injured doing X.
Yeah.
Then she'll let me know, and Lynn disappeared, so that's why I'm using fire. But, so then I can go back to the fire department and work with their safety training officer and say, hey, HR noticed, I noticed,
Yeah.
we're getting a lot of these, how can we help in training, how can we help in, let's look at more of the root cause in these situations. But I get all of them and try and filter through and figure out what I,
So that's all reactive stuff, right? Like, so you're doing that after the fact and you're seeing the numbers go up?
Yeah.
And then you're saying we gotta delve into those. So then, so basically at the time that the incident is reported, like that could have been months, weeks? Is that
usually
fair?
within, yeah, I mean, I'll
Oh, we
get
don't
it,
make
I
them
get
do
it
that, so we get it
immediately.
within 48 hours.
Yeah, I get it immediately because they're required to do it within
Okay.
a certain time frame. So I get a copy of it, but I may not go and look at all of those until at the end of the week, and then I look through
Okay.
what happened over the week, and I say, okay,
There's a trend.
there's a trend. I'm gonna go talk to Parks and Rec next week, or I'm gonna go talk to Energy, because I'm concerned about what I'm seeing.
And then
in
you
this.
say, any of these types that come up over the next period of time, I need you guys to do these additional investigative
Do a
things.
root cause analysis, look closer at them,
Okay.
and try and look, are we doing, could we be providing our employee with a better product that will save us from the injury? Are they just doing the process wrong? And that's when the safety officer for that department will then get involved and
Do another
do
training
more.
or whatever it is. Okay. So if by the type of incident you were alerted, and you were to say yes or no, on the, like it would come to you through workflow, and then you would be able to look at it and go yes or no on the root cause, or what was the other section that you were interested in, the risk?
The risk assessment.
Risk assessment for the,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's what you.
Because you don't do those on every one either, right? Like
Currently, no.
No?
Currently, no, because it's been too cumbersome to try and create a new form that then goes through these details, and we want to make sure that the employee knows and recognizes that these are separate and distinct, and you need to get HR their information ASAP.
Okay.
If you have a separate form, you want it to grab the information on the first.
Oh, yeah.
It would be very nice if it grabbed it, yeah. If there was a, if
It'd
there
be
was.
nice if it grabbed it, and it'd be nice if it initiated a workflow that the employee kept getting bugged about how they
Yeah.
did, right?
Yes,
Because one of the other,
totally.
because one of the other tensions is, you want the form to be simple so HR gets their information, but then when Bud goes to try to do the risk analysis, the employee says, well, I already filled out the form, I don't need to fill out another.
Right. Yeah, well, I'm thinking what might be the solution here is if we, it actually would all be the same form, but the sections that are applicable to certain people would be only the ones shown, right? So if there was, so if you had reviewed it and said, no, there's no risk, we don't need to do the analysis on root cause, then that section just wouldn't be shown. Nobody would be presented that to actually.
As long as when we do that, Pam still gets it and has all the
Is it gonna
information
be-
she needs immediately.
Would that be confusing for supervisors who feel like they've already signed off on that particular form?
Well, but if you send them an email saying, okay, this accident has been determined that we're going to do root cause analysis,
Yeah.
so we need you to fill out section F.
The presentment would be just the root cause analysis now. So it would look like it was just an individual root cause analysis with, you know, sort of the header of the detail.
That'd be fine.
Would that work,
Yeah.
you think?
Just
Okay.
just the information available so they know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
That sounds like just continuing the process and that's fine.
yeah. Okay. And really, I mean, we're saying you, but really it would be other people that could be doing that role as well, correct? So it would have to go be a group.
Your colors will please. Yeah, not every department, but our larger departments that have higher risk employees have safety officers or safety training individuals.
So we would have a group that this notification would go out to somebody, and somebody would take care of whether a root cause analysis, like
Well,
how
it'd
would
be
we
nice
do?
to know that by department, you'd know who it was.
Yeah. and
So
we
it
could-
would know if
we
this
could
is
by
Department of
department.
Public Works,
do
it
that,
would
yeah.
know who the public safety person is for that.
Right, if it
And
should
is that
email the
multiple
code.
folks?
One.
One for each
Just one
department.
person?
Or who's
So
the
that all go to
departments.
Bud, and then in certain departments that go to one other person too.
Yeah.
Oh, always you?
Always
and
to me,
plus.
but plus.
So we would need a list by department then, you would just have to be
I
on
could
every
get you.
one,
Uh-huh.
right? Okay. All right. while we're here, Pam, would you be able to, do you think you could run through your form once we're kind of going through this? I'd love to see that when it's all fresh. Is that fair?
Just pull it in a second.
Well, it'd be good too to
We'll put
go,
Daniel-
it'd be
Daniel
good to
got
pull
back
up
to
your,
it.
not only your form, but your PeopleSoft things, just to make sure everything is accounted
So all the stuff that was sent to Tony,
Yep.
has that been sent to you?
I don't have it.
Not
no.
sure.
She's going to.
So Tony may have sent it to, Joe was originally going to do these, so I think he probably received it and I didn't. So there was a little miscommunication there on our part.
We can
So-
get that, but it's pretty easy to walk you through the form itself.
We can
Yeah, I
open
was
it
just
up.
thinking if I could see visually, it
Just
would be
open it
good.
up on my desktop.
Yeah, if we could do that, that'd be awesome.
Really simple.
And then obviously, for vehicle incidents, and again, you know, assuming that we were to hide this if it was not a vehicle type incident, then these are all configurable again as also used for reporting, for reporting basically how many of these fog accidents are we having. Was it preventable? That shows up on the scorecard. Speed factor, were there any damage costs, which generally doesn't get filled up, and there's a claim process that doesn't come back into this form. And then, so there's a section for what happened to our vehicle, and then there's a section for if there was another vehicle involved, it's very much the same information.
We may have a lot of those accidents.
Well, you wouldn't have to fill out everything, right? You would fill out what's pertinent to get it started, and then Pam, like, how long does it take you, Pam, usually to go through the form? Fill in
If
all
I fill
those
out an
things?
accident report of what we've got now, 5 or 7 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And that's,
And you're
And that-
capturing all that information?
Well, see, we don't have all of this information. If I'm putting
what I-
all of the, what I have to in PeopleSoft, oh, I'm still probably 5 minutes or so. Not very long.
most of that is, the biggest problem with what Pam has to do is that she is now manually entering data from our SIRE form into PeopleSoft. And that is a significant problem, downside of our system, because it doesn't just transfer in from where it's
disconnected.
filled out. Yeah, it's totally disconnected.
So I'm manually entering and selecting fields and filling in fields. So a lot of this information I'm filling in PeopleSoft from the SIRE form.
Oh, I see,
Or
so
from what I
copy
have
and
to
pasting it.
Right. Filling out the form itself, and this is what we found. When we had a form like this, whether it was through SIRE or manual, it was going through, like, so if there's a slight vehicle accident, you have all these fields that supervisors and employees feel compelled to
Yeah.
fill out because it's there in front of you. Why would you be asking me
Yeah,
if
I
you
did
didn't
a
want it?
good job.
And so that would take a significant amount of time to go through, and when in reality, for the vast majority of the accidents that we have, whether they're small fender benders or whatever the case may be, we wouldn't be asking that much detail.
Yeah, hardly any information. I see.
So
Okay.
it doesn't take that long,
Okay.
depending on whether you've got the information you need or not, or if you've got to go track it all down.
And it is helpful on a supervisor's side of filling it out, that I know I have to fill out everything that comes up.
Right.
Because otherwise, that is difficult to be like, wait, am I supposed to?
Unless I train
Yeah.
you to not
Correct.
ignore this, ignore that, and that's
Yeah.
why we changed our form, because if it's in front of me, they want it, so fill it out.
Correct.
And then let's stop filling it out, because this is annoying.
Yes.
But then on the other side of that, you can't capture the reporting side of that, right? The statistical,
That's the frustration for Mike.
that's your problem.
We don't care. Sorry.
Thanks, Carl.
I support Bud. I just want them in a separate office.
That's what would be nice is you have the.
We'll get some buttons, man.
That was called straight out. That's actually where I'd be pushing back on Cody and Brett a little bit more than I do now.
And obviously, if on an incident, there's some things that need to be taken care of for containment purposes immediately. then you can action those out through the system, through the tasking mechanism here. We'll notify people and just kind of start getting those tasks taken care of. And we'll-
Do you have anything to say about this? Do you have anything you want to add coming from a, there's got to be.
From someone who hurts himself a lot?
Well, from
Stay in the house, don't leave.
from your aspect of what you have to do in your department. You've
The
probably.
way I
got a lot
look
to
at
do.
it, if they don't get hurt, we don't have to fill out a form.
That's right. But if they do you have any thoughts on that? No? No thoughts? Now's the time.
We have a lot of accidents of vehicles in our department, don't we, Brett?
No? Pretty good.
Nothing compared to other
When you
departments.
say signatures,
Which will
are
remain.
they normally filling this
So no-
out like on a tablet or something?
Yeah.
They can do it on a tablet or.
I think
your
whatever's
signatures
created,
are actually
we
just
learn
an
it.
e-sign because you're an authenticated user.
So you have
So
to
you're
digitize
already-
signature?
Well, no,
Easier is
it's
better
just
though,
a date, time stamp.
Easier is
User.
better.
So when you click it, it knows who you are.
Yeah, it's because you're already logged in, right?
Okay.
So, yeah.
If somebody don't like it, they'll tell you, and you check.
So I think we need to find a happy medium between collecting enough information to get good statistical reporting out and not overwhelming people that they say, screw it, I'm not going to fill this form.
Correct.
And
Something, yeah.
all right.
But again, HR is much more sensitive.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and that's the thing. I think if we do some smart display where we hide the data that's not, like HR doesn't need to see all that stuff, so we're not going to, don't present it. I think if we do some of that and we have the configurable sections by department, I think we can probably take care of most of the issues that you're having. Okay, let's go ahead and let's take a look at inspection.
Do you want to pull up the siren?
Oh, yeah, actually, I would like to see those. Could we
Inspection will be a new.
be all right?
Yeah. Can we pull it up in here?
Should be, but,
Access
to the interest, right?
Can we pull up Siren in here?
You could?
Pull it up. Is it confidential information?
We can just fill out a new form.
Can we open a new one?
Just a new one.
Just a,
Fire/Siren, you go into the.
Can they, that's on.
He's on the gas, so I don't.
So,
I might not have access.
Matt,
Here we
you
go.
want to bring up Siren?
Corey's got it.
Yeah, or I have, Corey's got it.
Kari's got it, can you make that go up to this?
We'll have to, well, you have to come over here. We'll look.